fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery.
Welcome back into the House Mystery. I'm Al Warren. Got Mr. Michael the Hammer Hawley.
That is correct. The hammer is, but actually on snow, because I was plowing snow today quite a bit. We got about 12 inches of snow here in Buffalo.
Wow. Yeah, and so I guess Joe's got a lot in Chicago, I guess, and cold wind and minus 20 and
yes.
all that stuff. You see, I'm up in Canada and it's warm.
I do not miss snow. I lived in Minnesota for a long time, and I do not miss snow at all.
That's cold and snow.
We are talking about a new book that came out, and it's called The Prodigal Son, Crackhead to Jesus Freak, and the author is with us. That's Samantha Tschritter. And, well, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, listen, Sam, you've written a few other books. Like, you haven't been on the show before, so let's talk about you first.
Okay.
Where you came from and how you got into writing books.
I have always been a storyteller, but I never realized it. I'll confess this to you with a little bit of embarrassment that, like, I played with Barbies until I was in 9th grade. But I didn't realize for a long time that I was telling stories. I was using them to tell stories. And then, I did, like, there was a poetry contest in 3rd grade, and I remember writing the poem in, like, 5 minutes and submitting it, and then it won first place at the district level. And it was just barely any effort. So writing has just always been a part of me, but I didn't own it until I was in my 20s, and people are like, hey, Sam, you know you have a few books on Amazon, right? And you know that, like, normal people don't write books for fun, right? And I was like, oh, okay. Like, maybe I'm an author. Maybe I'm not just, like, someone who writes books for fun, which is what I've been doing for a long time.
Yeah, but, so that's interesting, though. So you were putting things out for fun, kind of. Were you not kind of a little bit, how do you say this, feeling vulnerable or a little bit worried about, because, the world of social media and all this stuff, you put something out like a book, even if it's an ebook and you put it out and stuff like that, people find and comment, like you're all out there. Everybody can see you and what you're writing about. Did that not even come to your mind, or you not think about it? Or
it comes to your mind, but it requires courage, just like jumping off a cliff. I've skydived, and it feels a lot like that, like just putting your heart on a platter for the entire world to dissect if they want it. My first book was about infant loss and experiencing several miscarriages, and I talk about my own experience. I interviewed friends who experienced stillbirth and infant loss and things like that, and so it's very vulnerable, and it's very much like, here's my heart. Here's one of the most sensitive things I've ever experienced, and I'm going to share it with you. And I did that because I wrote it in the midst of my grief so that other women would not be alone in theirs. And I have had thousands of women thank me for writing this book. Like, oh my gosh, thank you for writing love letters to miscarriage moms. I felt like a friend that was walking through the whole process with us.
So it was therapeutic for not only you, but there's therapeutic for others.
Correct. Yeah, Love Letters to Miscarriage Moms was incredibly therapeutic to write for myself. The Prodigal Son was not. That felt very much like a Horcrux. Like, I was putting my soul into it, and it required a piece of my soul to write. So that book had a completely different feeling, because it was dealing with much darker topics. Right.
So how did you get from Barbie dolls telling a story to these deep subjects? These are pretty heavy. These are real serious. It's not like, Barbie saying, hey, Ken, let's go to the beach.
And then, you have to say, the hero and the heroine. And
yeah.
Well, my first love is fiction. So my first novel that I wrote was in a spiral notebook, and it's still not published. But that, like, my first love was fiction, and then the miscarriages happened, so I started writing that for myself. And then as a writer, I took up some freelance gigs, and part of that was interviewing other people and writing their stories from first person. So I was writing to make money and writing to, like, work on my craft, if that makes sense. And then when my late husband relapsed in 2017, it was this huge scandal. It was crazy. And then around like 2018, he's like, Sam, I want you to write my story. Like, what are the chances I'd be married to an author whose best work comes from wounds and who has experience interviewing other people? I want you to write my story. So I did. I interviewed him. It was like I have 6 hours of audio of him telling me his whole story. The first time he remembered telling a lie about himself because he didn't feel like he was good enough, and then we just kind of go from there. I can't help
but think that because we talk to a lot of writers, and when you write a fiction story, or even if it's nonfiction, true, and all that, with it someone you know, it has to change you going through the process. Like from before you started this book until now, you must look back and see that you're a different person. Is there some sort of change that you recognize easily now since you've written this book?
100%. So, for any of your listeners who don't know the story of the prodigal son, it's a parable that Jesus tells in Luke 15. And it's basically like the younger son asks for his inheritance and he runs away and he squanders all of his stuff on like prostitutes and drinking and like spends all of his inheritance and then goes back to his father and says like, please take me back. And the older son is really arrogant and judgmental and like, why does he deserve special treatment? Why are you going to bring, like, I've been here this whole time working for you, working hard. And so Clint identified as an addict, he identified very much with the prodigal son in that story. He had prodigal son tattooed to his forearms, which is we can talk more if you want about like where the title came from. It's a really cool story. But he identified with that younger brother. I identified with the older brother. I was very judgmental of addicts. I didn't understand what that was like when I felt like he was cheating on me with alcohol when he relapsed or when he was hiding it from me. And so writing the story from his point of view changed how I thought and what I felt about addicts. Like, there's much more understanding and there's much more empathy, knowing how hard the battle is to remain sober and to deal with that. And that's a huge, huge life change for me.
You know, I look at this too. I also think that in this particular case, are you thinking about the readers as you write the story? Like, you know, you're doing the interviews and all that stuff, but when you're sitting down and actually writing this story into a book, are you thinking about how the readers are going to take what you write, like, and understand and all that stuff? Is it part of your process or not?
Yeah, it wasn't at first. At first, I was trying to just formulate what pieces needed to go in there because I had so much content. And then you have to narrow that down into, you know, like a readable size form. But eventually I started seeing the readers that were going to be reading it. And I wanted them to understand that someone else had gone through similar circumstances. Like, I have seen a spouse handcuffed. I have called 911 on my spouse. I have seen red and blue lights in my living room window. And so, like, there are other people who are living in that darkness and having to deal with things like that. And I wanted them to understand that they're not alone in those things that they're dealing with.
Now, I see this as book one, Addictions Recovery Support, book one. It's part of a series you're doing. So you're planning on doing more books like this?
Potentially. There is another book in the series. I'm not, like, with Amazon, it's hard to, like, it's the main book in the series, but then there's also a prayer book that goes along with it. So if you have someone who's battling addiction and you want to pray for them, there's prayers against addiction, and the left side of the page is a typed prayer that people can read, and then the right side is lines where they can pray a specific prayer for the person that they know who's an addict. So I'm not sure how to, like, I need to explore that a little bit better because people keep asking me about a sequel, and if there was one, it'd be called The Widow's Mite, MIGHT, and it would be my story of how I started mourning my late husband's death the day of the accident. And, like, just because we had the cancer diagnosis, we found the cancer diagnosis because of the accident. And so I started mourning his death along with the cancer diagnosis, and just that whole process.
Really interesting. What did you find out about yourself?
In what regard?
Just something, because we all live a certain way. Like, we're living and acting and talking to people a certain way. We treat people a certain way. We behave, and we're living our life. And then something major like this you go through, and but when you're writing it, down on the paper, were there things that you've seen about yourself that you were like, oh, wow, I didn't realize? Do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes we act a certain way and we don't realize it until we see it.
Yeah, my judgmental heart, if like writing the book felt like putting up a mirror to the ugly parts of my heart where I judged addicts for certain things. Because you don't understand. Like, you're like, oh man, if she would just get sober, if she would just stop spending money on drugs and, use that money to go to college or, take care of her family. And like, I think I know I'm not the only one who, sees someone on the street corner with a cardboard sign and is like, man, you need to get it together. But interviewing not only Clint, but talking to other addicts that he knew, and interviewing them and talking, like learning from them and hearing their story, they all say really similar things. And they talk about how hard it is to overcome addiction. And so it's not just something that they choose. The addiction chooses them. And I think when you learn what addicts deal with and what they're up against, that they it's almost like getting high is that air, their oxygen, and they need it to breathe. When you learn how desperate they are for the drug and how much the drug changes them, it starts to change you and you start to have more empathy for what they're going through.
I'm retired now, but I was in the secondary ed teaching, and every year we always have a speaker for our students for lots of different things, drugs, all of that kind of stuff to help them out. And I would say you fit perfectly in both perspectives. Drugs, kids, right? Yeah, not just that, but there's even at my school district there were the addictions, and there's even gambling addiction now, with especially football. But that perspective, but also it's almost the whole family should see that, because what you were talking about is both, not just the prodigal son, but the older son perspective, and you have both of it, and you personally experienced it and felt it and lived it. That's where these students would just eat that up. I think there's a calling there. I think you should start finding ways to get into these communities.
Thank you. I mean, and I do write part of the story from my point of view. The opening scene is me receiving the phone call from the police officer, Miss Evans, this is Sergeant Jeremy Reed with the New Ulm Police Department. There's been an accident. That's in the first few paragraphs of the book. And so it is written from both perspectives for people that want to understand that. I would love to get into schools, and because I have 3 daughters who had an addict father, and I'm like, you hereditarily, you are more prone to addiction than other people. And so you need to stay away from drugs, because you don't know what your drug of choice is going to be. You don't know which drug you're going to be able to take and walk away from, and you don't know which drug is going to just grab you and sink its claws into you. I would love to get into schools or talk with, I talked to my publicist about going to prison. I'm like, I want to go to prison. And I would love for men and women in prison to be able to read this book and talk about it, and then maybe do a Zoom with them. I don't even know if that's possible. We were just talking about this on Saturday, but to be able to just talk with them and let them ask me questions about what my experience was like, that'd be fantastic.
Nice about the schools, the younger, the teenagers, you might catch them before they go to prison.
Right.
So it's like I'm all for that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, guys, you don't know what's going to catch you. You just don't know. So stand back. It's not the way you want to cope with life.
And it was the curriculum coordinators that kind of coordinated that. So, you start with a district, and then next thing you know, that's on your resume, and you just keep that going. I should be your publicist. I'm sorry. Okay, Sam?
You can take that up with Mickey. See how it goes.
Yeah, we'll connect you with Mickey. You can go to work for him.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, if you have school connections, I'm all open. So that'd be great.
Not so much in South Carolina, though.
Probably not.
Buffalo, the Bills lost, they got screwed. So
did the Bears. I'm a Bears girl, so.
Oh, yes, they did. Yes, I watched that one, too. So.
Well, what else is important? Yeah, that's, boy, that's life.
Yes.
Well, so where do you go from here then? Like, this has been a big change in your life because there's some real event that happened to you, and you've written the book, you've got it out there, and you're out talking about it and out there. So where does Samantha go now?
I mean, I'm talking about it. I'm promoting this book. The next book I'm working on is actually a romantic suspense fiction, because I need a break, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say, you need something light.
Yeah. Murder feels like a break. Like, there's a murderer in this book, and it feels much easier to write about than my real life. So, I mean, it's probably because it's not my real life. But I'm excited to, like, it's my debut novel, and it comes out March 31st. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, there is a huge advantage. I've written a lot of true crime nonfiction, and I know there's a great advantage to fiction in the way that you can make sure the bad guy gets it.
Yeah. 100%, yeah.
Because a lot of times when you do the real story and you're doing all this, it's not really justice. It's not really, it doesn't always turn out the way it should, and so you got a good advantage there, That's kind of a nice thing. So that's going to be the relief for you.
It will be. It has been. I'm working on book 2 for that series right now, and it feels so good to just be in a fiction space right now. The Prodigal Son, I mean, it ends talking about Clint's death, because he does die in the end from cancer. He lived 20 months from diagnosis to death. But there is hope mixed in with that. And so even though it ends with his death, there are like glimmers of hope and light at the end that help readers understand that, this isn't all there is. There's more to life, and there's more hope. And
the title, you said it was an interesting story. So how did the title come about?
So he had Prodigal Son tattooed to his forearms, like I said. The pastor who officiated his celebration of life service also visited him in jail when he was arrested for the drunk driving, because he also fled police, which is a felony. So it was a whole huge scandal. But this pastor visited Clint in jail, and he said, Clint sat across the table from him, and he could see the words Prodigal Son tattooed to his forearms. And he wanted in that moment to reach over with a Sharpie and write apostrophe S to prodigal, because we are all prodigal children of a prodigal God, a God who left heaven to come find us. And so that was his sermon. And if standing ovations were allowed for a celebration of life service or a funeral, like, he would have received one. It was a really powerful service. And then Crackhead to Jesus Freak were Clint's own words. Not many people know what a cardboard testimony is, but a lot of Christians will stand up in a row, and then you have like a before I met Jesus and after I met Jesus. So there was we did this cardboard testimony, and I was trying to figure out how to fit his entire story of his addiction and all these things on a piece of cardboard. I'm a writer, so it could have easily been 1,500 words, but it has to be big enough for people to see, like, really far away. And so he's like, Sam, what are you doing? Crackhead, Jesus freak. And he simplified it that much. And actually in the book, there's a picture of him holding a cardboard sign that says crack addict. And that was his testimony, crackhead, Jesus freak. And so that's the subtitle for the book, which has actually been really good for SEO as well.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So listen, I take it you want readers and fans not to get in contact with you and stuff, or communicate in some way. Do you have a website, social media? Where do you want fans and readers to find you?
I will not make your fans and readers spell my last name. My website is loveunedited.com. That's it. And then there's a link right at the top to connect with me on social media. There are links to purchase the books, all those things right there at the top of the website. So,
well, fantastic. Now, we'll have it up on our website, too, so people can find it. They can just click on it. They don't have to worry about spelling or anything like that. So I got it made. The book, yeah. The Prodigal Son. That's Crackhead to Jesus Freak. The author with us today who talked about it, Samantha Tschritter. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a fun conversation.
This has been a production of the House of Mystery Radio Show. To find out more about our show, guests, or hosts, go to our website at houseofmysteryradio.com.